We'll call to order the City Council meeting for Monday, July 7th, 2025. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Amanda.
Shannon Derby. Here. Bill LeClaire.
Here.
Doug Grant.
Here.
Tim Petrie.
Here.
Bonnie Shimounis. Here. Scott Steckenser.
Here.
Adam Mahowski.
Here.
Donald LeClaire. Here. Martha Durant.
Okay, we'll skip over 4 because we had no communication from Mark if he was going to join us. We'll go to number 5. Tonight we do have a public hearing. Public hearing is regarding an ordinance to amend the district map, section 10-1-3A1 of the zoning code to rezone the property located at 1608 Monroe Street from I-1 industrial to R3 single and double family residential as requested by applicant and owner Mark Ramey. This is a public hearing, so this will be a chance for the public to make comments. We'll have 3 calls for the public hearing. If you wish to comment about this item, please step up to the podium on your left and state your name and address for the record. The microphones aren't working for streaming. There's a puck in the middle of the table. You just have to use your voice if you'd like to call or talk about it. So I'll now open up the first call. Seeing no one, I'll close the first call and open up the second call. Seeing no one, I'll close the second call and open up the third and final call. Okay, I'll close the third and final call, bring it back to council. We're looking for an action, a motion to waive reading and adopt the ordinance. Thank you, Bill. Second by. Thank you, Doug. Any council discussion? See none, we'll do a roll call vote. Amanda.
Shannon Derby. Aye. Bill LeClaire.
Aye.
Doug Grant.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimounis. Aye. Scott Steckenser.
Aye.
Adam Mahowski.
Aye.
Donald LeClaire. Aye. All in favor.
Okay, thank you all for that. On to number 6, input from the public. If anyone wishes to address the council, again, please step up to the podium on your left and state your name and address for the record. Input from the public.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Brownie, for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. No input from the public, so we'll go to council communications. Letters and other communications from citizens. Anyone have anything to say?
I had a couple that were addressed, one with the beach and garbage, and I think Mike addressed all of us on that afterwards. Also, tree clearing downtown Washington Street, the ones that are in the terrace that are covering signs and buildings. I also talked to Mike on that, and it sounds like they'll be addressing that this week. And then the last one I did send out, I don't know if there was a response. I did send it to Joe and to Greg earlier today with Sports Brewers. Did you see that one?
I did see it. Joe was out of the office until later in the week. I did not have a chance to respond, but I can do that tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I had. It was a communication in regards to the calendar, I believe.
Yeah, someone was having some difficulty seeing the events listing on the calendar form for Explore Two Rivers. I know it's there, but if you're accessing it from your phone or other handheld device, it's a little trickier. Yeah, but I will respond. I know the information is out there. Sometimes you end up in the wrong place. Thanks for passing that on.
Anyone else? I did get a couple, specifically speeding on Jackson Street. Chief has already taken care of that in communication with him. That specifically between 22nd Street and East Street. So Chief is looking into that. We are all invited to march in the Snowfest Parade. Tony Soxy reached out to me and formally invited us. I don't know if he called Greg or your office or anything about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I will be talking to Snow on the Manitowoc Mayor's desk to reenact events 50 years ago, and yes, and riding the parade and seeing if by any chance Kyle, the city manager designate, might be around.
Cool. Okay. And then I got while leaving the fireworks on the 4th, got a lot of compliments from those that were in attendance. So thank you to Parks Rec, PD, Fire Department, Public Works. And all volunteers and all the sponsors, thank you very much for all your efforts for the fireworks. It was a nice show. and the bands, or not the band, but, you know, yeah, the city band and the city courtsman. Thanks to all those people. And that is all I have. Anyone else? Then on to number 8, council reports for boards, commissions, and committees. Anyone have anything? Okay. Then on to number 9, city manager's report, Greg.
Yes, as I noted in an email to council earlier today, I chalk it up to the July 4th holiday, I guess. But I had neglected to put on the agenda and invited guests we do have here tonight. In fact, Tom Hanrahan, Senior Counsel for WPPI Energy, the city's electric supplier, the joint action agency that we are part of. And Brian Delman, our electric utility director, will handle any further introduction.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'm very pleased to introduce Tom Hanrahan from WPPI. Tom's current role is General Counsel from WPPI, as Greg earlier mentioned. He's here tonight to give a high-level update on WPPI. He's also going to explain some of the services and programs that Two Rivers and its customers benefit from. With that, Tom.
Thanks, Brian.
Tom's report is going out to the community, by the way. You have it in front of you.
They have handouts? Do folks need handouts?
Actually, do you need that handout?
Okay, all right, I'll go for it then. Well, thanks for giving me 10 or 15 minutes of questions to give you an update on WPPI. We try to do these meetings with our members' governing bodies every other year. It's just a chance to get out and let you know what we're up to and hear from you on any questions or thoughts you might have. So please interrupt me if you have questions today. This evening, if anything comes up after this and you want to reach out, you can always reach out to me. Tom Holt is here, one of my colleagues, a regular face to you all, and you can certainly talk with him as well. So WPPI is in its 45th year, so we're going to be celebrating our 45th anniversary this year, and I'll come back to that towards the end. But our history really goes back a little bit further than that. WPPI was formed in 1980, but the efforts to create WPPI really started in the early 70s. And in fact, in 1975, there was a committee put together through the Wisconsin Municipal Electric Utilities Association to investigate creating an organization like WPPI. And it's important to point out that Two Rivers was at the table for those discussions. So you've really been, you helped create WPPI with us from the beginning. Two Rivers had a seat on, I think there was a 6 or 7 person exploratory committee. So a belated thanks for that. As somebody who's worked for WPPI, I'm on my 20th year. So it's a organization that I think is great. So in terms of just a sort of a level set on WPPI, you know, we've got 51 members, 41 of them are in the state of Wisconsin. We've got 7 utilities we serve in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and then 3 in Northeast Iowa. We have, each member has a spot on our board of directors. So Brian and Greg serve as the director and alternate for Two Rivers, and every member has their own spot as well. We have an 11-member executive committee. I'm on the second page of the presentation that meets monthly and provides direction to staff, and that's a subset of it. In terms of this, just sort of for the size of WPPI, our peak demand was 1,050 megawatts that was set last year. That makes us around the same size as Dairyland. You've heard of Dairyland Electric Cooperative. They're a generation and transmission cooperative, and Madison Gas and Electric, and mostly the city of Madison. We're all roughly about the same. We have an annual budget of about $500 million, and that's largely related to the power supply costs. That's by far the largest cost WPPI has for our members. So I was going to focus on 3 areas, key areas for WPPI. The most obvious and important one being power supply, but also some of the services that Brian mentioned that we work with our members on, and then a little bit on advocacy where Greg has really helped us out over the years. So in terms of our power supply portfolio, I'm on page 3. you'll see that this is a snapshot of our major resources today. And you'll see that they're geographically mixed. We've got resources in 3 states, and they're also diverse in resource type. We have a little bit of everything. We have natural gas, we have coal, we have nuclear, solar, wind, a little bit of hydroelectric. And in order to have the resources we have and located where they are, we rely on the transmission grid to deliver the energy from those resources effectively to serve our members. And I'll come back and talk about transmission in a bit. But we really think of our portfolio as like you might think of your 401k. We've got a variety of assets. Some we own directly, some we purchase power out of from our partners, and we have in varying terms. So we have long-term resources, which is what you see largely here, but then also medium and short-term resources that allows us to be. So moving on to the next slide, number 4. To talk a little bit about where we're at currently and what we're thinking about in power supply. So we've had a very balanced portfolio. We haven't procured any new major resources for about 7 years, but we're going to start seeing now between now and 2033 a big need. And I talked about that 1,050 megawatts as our peak a little bit ago. We have about a 400 megawatt need that we'll need to be filling in the next 5 to 7 years. We've already started on that process. We have partners at some of the generating projects that we co-own. We obviously have partnerships with those that we buy power from, but we also go out to the market periodically and see what else is out there. So we issued a request for proposals last year. We got some interesting responses, and we've been negotiating with people on potential new power supply resources. You'll probably be hearing from us on some of those shortly here, perhaps yet this year. And then we'll do another request for proposals this year. And what we're doing is we're trying to follow the same approach we've always followed, which is to be diverse. And so we're talking with folks about renewables. We're talking about natural gas units, which the more renewables get on the system, the more important it is to have dispatchable resources or resources that you can turn on that will run when you need them to. So we're looking at balancing out the renewables that we have in our portfolio and that we might add with resources that we know will be there when the sun isn't shining. So we're in a good position, but we will be over the next couple of years, as I said, we're going to be looking at updating our portfolio quite substantially. 2 of the resources that I pointed to earlier were 2 coal units that are, the first is the very first resource that WPPI owned, and that is the Boswell coal plant in north central Minnesota. We own that, co-own that with Minnesota Power. And then the second is the Elm Road Generating Station, which is a coal plant that we have partnered with Madison Gas and Electric and Wisconsin Electric Power Company back in the early 2000s. That went online in, I think, 2010, 2011. Our co-owners at both of those projects have announced that by 2035, they want to shift the fuel that's used at those projects from coal to natural gas. And some of that's already started at Elm Road down near Milwaukee. In Minnesota, that process isn't underway, but it's something that we're looking at. So those will be big transitions for us. There'll still be resources for us. They will be dispatched a little bit differently, but they will continue to provide value to us, we think, in the future. And we'll be working with our partners more on the details. So, sure.
What's our cheapest resource for power?
I'm probably not the greatest person to ask that to. From an energy standpoint, it would be our renewables. So those for renewables, you pay an upfront cost for those projects to be constructed, and then the energy is essentially free. So we've entered into renewable projects. I think our first that we entered into was probably 2007. And the cost of those projects gradually came down over the years as the technology improved and there was more of it on the system. I'd say probably our cheapest wind resource is a resource we own. It's in Illinois there. That's our most recent purchase. The Point Beach solar project that we entered into, that went online in about 2018, 2019, before that. That's our cheapest solar resource for sure. The value of the other projects has changed. So coal used to be the cheapest, so it would have been our Boswell unit or our Elm Road unit. But natural gas has become so cheap that coal doesn't always run around the clock like it used to. So that makes those units a little bit more expensive.
That's what I was asking, because it was a couple of years ago when the coal plants were offline and our power peak went way up. We were paying substantially more for our power right here in Two Rivers. And what we were told is, well, those coal plants were out of commission for whatever reason. And we saw a dramatic increase in our energy, and that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, those were major outages a couple of years ago. They unfortunately happened at the same time. One of the units at Elm Road and the Boswell units. Also at a time when natural gas prices were very high. So sort of a number of events happening at the same time. One of the things that we were able to do is we have what we call a rate stabilization fund. So we have a pool of dollars that are available that sort of sit there in the event that there's a major outage at a unit, so that we can use those dollars to offset what might be a price shock to members. And so we use a substantial amount of money from that fund to offset some of those costs that you're talking about that happened. I think it was primarily June and July that we used it for, which are really expensive months for power supply.
I think there was an extra day in that month too.
Might have been an extra day, yeah, could be, or in that year, yeah, yep. And natural gas prices have come down substantially since then. I think they're probably less than half, probably even less than that. You know, we do have natural gas resources as well, so finishing the discussion. The value of those depends upon the price of natural gas. We have some resources where we lock in the natural gas, so that's a real hedge against market energy costs. There's some where it doesn't necessarily make sense to do that because it's expensive to run those units. They're really only meant for the really, really hot days, the peak periods of the year. And so some of those we don't hedge, but they're available to us in the event that there's a major power need. You know, this summer's been interesting already. You might remember a couple of weeks ago, we had a stretch of really warm days, like a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And all of our units were running. That includes natural gas units that rarely run. That just gives you an indication of how much need there was on the system. So, and they all performed very well. Okay. We shift to transmission a little bit. I referred to transmission earlier. So there has been, and I think for the near term will continue to be, a substantial build out of transmission on the in the Midwest, which is the area in which we operate. It's called the Mid-Continent Independent System. And there have been a substantial number of projects, transmission projects that will be built, some of them in Wisconsin and some of them throughout the Midwest. But just to give you a flavor of the cost of these projects. So here in Two Rivers, the transmission system that's used to deliver power to your community in most of Wisconsin is the American Transmission Company. That's about a $4 billion company in assets. There have been announced projects through MISO, the Midwest Mid-Continent System Operator, for about $3 billion for Wisconsin. So, and that's just a portion of the projects that we built. That's in addition to sort of the regular work that ATC does to keep their grid functional. So there's a huge explosion of projects. Some, you know, we don't have any quarrel that a lot of this is needed. We're a utility that you can find less expensive resources remotely and then have transmission to bring them in. We're in favor of the grid being the right size to bring the right resources in. One of the ways that we can avoid major price shock related to that is we can invest in transmission ourselves. We can use the returns that we earn to offset our costs. So WPPI has been an owner of the American Transmission Company since its formation. And as an owner, we're entitled to the same return that the other owners make on their investment. The difference is we use those dollars to lower our overall costs to our members. We've invested in a number of other transmission projects in the western part of the state outside of ATC's territory to hedge our costs to serve our members in western Wisconsin. But for the same reason, it allows us to take those dollars and use them to offset our costs. In terms of dollar impacts, if you think of WPPI's average cost to its members, it's about a 3% reduction in what those costs would otherwise be if we were just a transmission customer and not a transmission. So as this build out happens, we're going to continue to think about, and our board and our executive committee are thinking about making additional investments that we have the right to make under ATC, and give some thought to other projects, other partners who we've worked on transmission, to see if it makes sense to continue this process given the savings that it provides. And it's really one of the things that's allowed us to keep our rates relatively level. So if you go back and look at what WPPI's rates were in 2012, and you look at them now, they're roughly the same. So for that period of time, our rates have moved around a little bit. We talked about the year where we had the 2 units down, went up a little bit in those years, but otherwise they're largely the same as they've been since 2012. So and that's a strategy that transmission investment helps with. So that's all I wanted to mention on transmission, and then moving on to slide 6. Just talk a little bit about, and I'll end on services and support that we provide members in an outreach and advocacy. So what's happening to loads in the Midwest? You know, if I had been here 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said, well, loads are pretty flat across the Midwest. There isn't a lot of electric growth. But the tune is different now. There's projected to be a substantial amount of growth. Part of that is things like EVs and other electrification. But the biggest driver of that is the potential for data centers. You've probably read about the Microsoft project down in Racine County. I mentioned WPPI is about 1,000 megawatts. The first tranche of that project is going to be 1,000. So it's going to be a substantial load at one site. And it's not just the project in Racine County. There are other announced projects by Wisconsin Electric Power. Alliant Energy has announced a project in central Wisconsin, and they're all very large. So this is really what's driving load growth. And it feels a little bit like a gold rush, where there's lots of interest in siting or getting sites ready for data centers. And it's hard to tell how many of them will develop. You know, I think that this new model, this new industry is kind of shaking out. A number of our members have received inquiries, and they've been for not 1,000 megawatts, but multiples of the total load in the member community to be served for a single customer. Some we've seen have been in the hundreds, so substantial size. So one of the things we're working on with members is making sure that we think about, for WPPI, the power supply piece of this, because with all these expected new loads coming on, every utility is seeing this, and it's creating some contraction in the number of possible generating facilities that one might be able to buy into. So, we're looking at how do we serve these customers, which can be great for a community. They bring economic development, they bring increased tax base. So definitely a lot of positives to having new load, but also some caution that we need to think about. And we're in the process of working with a couple of members on those things and talking internally and with our board about what might be a best approach for WPPIB to protect other members who don't have data centers in communities from a data center failing to develop or materialize or going out of business, and how do we protect communities where those data centers want to land to minimize the risk that other customers will be in the position of paying costs that they didn't. Interesting issue to be working on. There's other shared resources in addition to just sharing information with members that I wanted to highlight. We have a number of programs where WPPI and our members working together can get resources in place for any member who's interested at a cost that would be substantially lower than if the member wanted to do it themselves. And examples are meter tech programs. So we now have 3 or 4 meter techs on WPPI staff members can subscribe to a portion of an employee. So it's not somebody you would have to train up to do what's essentially a part-time job in your community, or have to hire a consulting meter tech to do it. We've got people on staff and members subscribe to that. Two Rivers has a subscription in our meter tech program, and again, it's a service that we can really provide at cost as compared to what it might be if you tried to accomplish that elsewhere. A new program we're working on that we're excited about is our GIS support program. This is a geographic information system mapping. Essentially, it allows you, it brings a technical person in who's able to map the entire electrical system, which provide benefits for outage management, for inventory, for capital, figuring out capital projects and expansion, and just keeping track of the system assets. We started that program less than a year ago, and we got a subscription equivalent to a full-time employee from a number of members, and we're just hiring the second employee now. That's how fast the program's taking. So those programs are all paid by for those members who subscribe in them. And again, just a great way we're able to help to provide members with resources that would be challenging to have. Then the last one I'll mention is we've got community outreach funds. We call them the value of local utility funds. And last year, our board approved a pretty substantial increase in the funds available to member communities. So every member, based on their size, is allotted a pool of dollars. And you know, these are really dollars that, you know, an organization like WPPI, we want to do community outreach. We want to have touches with our retail customers, but it's really more effective to do that through our members. You all have closer relationships with customers than we have. And we found over the years that it's more effective to provide those dollars to your communities and have you figure out the best way to use those. And they're used for things like local economic development, organization support, high school scholarships, energy efficiency incentives, other donations to worthy local causes that you might choose. Public Power Week is a big issue, thing for our member communities, something we celebrate, funding that, and then other utility branding. So again, dollars that we can make available, and they really benefit the member community, but they bring big benefit to the whole WPPS. So then I'll end quickly on energy policy advocacy. So it's been an interesting couple of beginning of the year when it comes to issues that affect our utilities. In the budget reconciliation process, the biggest issue that our national organization, the American Public Power Association, and WPPI and municipalities have is preserving tax-exempt financing. So just like your community can use tax-exempt financing to fund local projects, including utility projects, WPPI can use that same process to fund our generation and transmission projects. So again, a key tool, a key money-saving tool, and that ability to exercise that funding has remained in place and wasn't changed through the reconciliation bill that the president signed. On the state level, you've, I'm sure, read that the governor signed the biennial state budget at the end of last week. There was a related set of bills that sort of snuck in right before that you might be aware of, might not. And those are a couple of bills related to advancing nuclear power in Wisconsin, something we're excited about. The bills would create a process for there to be sort of a state collaborative put together to examine the issue. It would direct the Public Service Commission, or will direct the Public Service Commission to look at siting Wisconsin. We think ultimately this is a good thing. You know, there hasn't been new nuclear in Wisconsin since the 70s, I think. And we think it's given the cost and the technology, the newness of the technology for new nuclear, that it makes sense for everybody in the state to work together on it. So that's something that WPPI is interested in participating in. So that's all I wanted to cover. I had just one other plug, and that is, I mentioned our 45th year. We're having a celebration this year, and it's going to be at Lambeau Field, and it's going to be on September 17th and 18th. And just a plug to you all, if you're available and would like to attend, we'd love to have you there. We will be at Lambeau Field for the programming and the evening celebration. There will be tours of the field, and I think it will be a great time. So, any questions?
How do your shared resources work? For example, what does utility customer interconnection mean? Does that mean like we share electricity or something like that?
Yeah, no, I skipped over that one. I apologize. That's so our members are seeing, a lot of customers with rooftop solar, for example, wanting to interconnect to their system, and there are sort of arcane rules that the utility has to follow to do that in a timely way and make sure they get the information they need from the customer gets the information they need from the utility, and that all works seamlessly. And those rules have changed recently. So we had a member group get together and create sort of a handbook, a checklist that you can use. And then we created an online tool working with a member group. So that will be available now to all of our members. So it's really, it's for the utility to make it easier to process those kinds of things. So again, it's just an example.
These battery stations, battery storage fields, or whatever, about that.
We are interested in battery storage as a resource. We've got a couple of potential projects that our power supply staff is looking at. It's still quite expensive. So we're looking to partner on a project where we could get some of the benefit, but where a developer might want some of the other benefit and take more risk for those projects. I think long-term it's something we'll definitely be interested in, but it's sort of like renewables where, it takes a while for the cost of those projects to be. So that's kind of still where we are, but we're definitely monitoring it and looking to see if we can do the platform.
Where are you guys at with hydroelectric? You don't have them listed.
We don't have any listed. We do have a number of members with hydro. It's not there's not a lot of hydro in Wisconsin, as you know.
There's a lot of water.
There is a lot of water, yeah. The Wisconsin River is where most of the hydro is in the Fox River, of course. So as I mentioned, we have a number of members who have hydro. The other hydro resource that we have a long history with is Manitoba Hydro. We've bought and sold power from them really almost since WPPI's existence. We entered into a transaction with them last year to swap. We have regulatory capacity requirements we have to have for each season. We have a summer need. They have winter needs when there's less hydro. So we swapped some capacity at there were no dollars exchanged, just this product. But we feel like it's an opportunity now that we have this arrangement set and the rights to get power flowing from Manitoba into our region, that it might be tough. So definitely somebody can talk with. They've been a really good partner. Any other questions? If not, I have one other item, and it involves you, Greg. So, Greg, you weren't able to make our board meeting in April, and I've been tasked with providing you with a certificate of recognition for all of your efforts on behalf of WPPI. You've been on our board almost 30 years as a director or alternate, and you've been really active. I know for me on the policy side, I know you've been a great resource to us, always somebody whose brain we can pick, and you've been with us out to Washington, D.C. You've led groups of our WPPI delegation in meeting and providing input on our congressional staff and our congressional representatives. So we want to thank you for all your work, and we're going to miss you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll keep using your power.
Okay. Deal.
Appreciate that, and I would offer the comment that when we've had the opportunity to go out for the American Public Power Association legislative rally, usually in February or March of each year, WPPI is held in high regard by our congressional delegation and their staffs. Understanding most of the members are in Wisconsin, but between Wisconsin, a few communities in Iowa and the Upper Peninsula. These are the folks that keep the power on for 51 member owner communities. So Two Rivers is very proud to be a founding member. And while sometimes there are rate comparisons we can draw with neighbors near, sometimes far, we're in this for the long haul. And I think the community's been very capably represented through those years by WPPI. Thank you for being here today. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the patience of people that are here under the status updates. I'd like to ask our finance director, Cassie Pater, and our police chief, Ben Miner, forward to introduce two of our newest full-time employees who are here tonight, and they're still here in the audience, despite our technical delays. Two newest members of the City of Two Rivers team. And thanks for the family and friends that are here tonight as well.
Back on June 2nd, Michelle LeClaire started as our new accounting clerk. She's really been a great addition and has jumped right in and jumped into AP and getting the bills paid and special assessments and all the fun finance things. A little background on Michelle. She was born up in Kewaunee, but was raised and graduated from Two Rivers. She currently resides here with her husband and her two feline fur babies. She spent 22 years serving in the Army National Guard and has a wealth of experience in financial transactions from a variety of industries. And we are very lucky to have her. And welcome. A little late, but welcome.
Thank you. Welcome again, Michelle. Thank you, Cassie. Chief Miner.
Congratulations, Michelle. Secondly, our staff, as you know, this is our clerical professional and evidence custodian position. I'm happy to announce that we're bringing Betsy Olson on board. I'm thrilled to have her. You may not know this, but most of our staff does, is she worked in Manitowoc County Dispatch and also our Emergency Operations Center for 3 years. And then most recently at Brown County Sheriff's Department Joint Dispatch Center for the last 3 years, where she was also a supervisor. So Betsy Olson, congratulations.
Pleasure to meet you. Always glad when we can have great candidates locally to fill positions with the city. So, both great additions. So, thank you. And a lot of effort went into the recruitment and selection process. So, thank you to Amanda, who, in addition to being clerk, doubles as our personnel director, and to the department, Cassie, and his staff. Good things happening. Just a reminder, and the people that are watching at home see this, and you can be following along in your printout of the city manager's report. Kyle Cordell, Two Rivers new city manager, still set to come on board on August 4. And I'll be meeting with Kyle later this week to go over his matrix of things that he already has lined up and for priorities as he starts the job. My official retirement date that was announced quite a while ago, August 8th. I'm maybe wrapping things up a week later with some things like getting some more files organized by August 15th. So, but as of the 4th, the city manager's office, which is amazingly clean. I invite you to come for tours. There's a $5 cover charge, 10 if you want a photo with me. But it's looking pretty good, and I will, for Kyle's first 2 weeks, be just taking quarters in the vacant community development office across the hall. So, look forward to that very much. 4th of July, right? Yeah. Yep. 4th of July. First of all, great weekend. Kudos to the Parks and Rec staff for being great hosts at Walsh Field for the fireworks, for our beach, which is Two Rivers Summer Calling Card, looking good, being kept clean, groomed, the garbage picked up, the toilet paper stocked, all of those important things for the users. Thank you to all of the sponsors that were acknowledged tonight off the fireworks. That's an entirely community-sponsored event there. Between that and our summer concerts, about $35,000 in donations from the community and sponsors. So would highlight those things. When you have that much activity in town on a holiday weekend in any community, there are some issues that don't go so well. Sometimes that's where our police department has to get involved. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty good weekend. Chief has some details to share with you as well.
Yeah, I'd also like to give kudos to Mike and his staff. The amount of work that's been done down at Neshota Park. Clearly, we've had a no tolerance policy as far as the parking issues because we got new grass. They did a ton of work down there getting everything staked off, roped off, things that used to be a problem in the past for us that we kind of do makeshift. So this was clearly evident, the places they could park and could not park. So we had zero tolerance when they did park in those areas. With that being said, this is just related to the 4th of July fireworks time period down at the beach. They gave out 8 parking tickets. And mind you, they had to kind of go out, you had to kind of go out of your way to get a parking ticket down there because officers, again, we're always looking for compliance. They gave out 26 warnings and had people move vehicles, so they were staying on top of it proactively. If you were down there, you saw cops down there on bikes, on UTV, on foot, so they were really trying to be proactive with everything. We had 3 vehicles that were towed, and with that being said, that's not something where we just ultimately, quick towed them, but they were clearly in violation. They gave them some time period to come back and move their vehicle. They did not. One person, for instance, came back 4 hours later and was upset that her vehicle was towed from kind of the sand dune path area. So that's an example. In addition, we had 40 contacts related to glass bottles that had to be removed, 4 fireworks complaints down at the beach where fireworks had to be removed, 15 dogs on the beach that were removed, 1 traffic warning, 1 traffic ticket. We had an unfortunate incident with one of our local residents with an OWI where he resisted arrest, made threats to law enforcement, and was ultimately tased to get him in compliance and take him to jail. That was at the fireworks. He had also gone through barricades. Unfortunately, we have those issues. It seemingly happens every year where we get one drunk individual that's not paying attention to signs and making it unsafe for others. But we handled that appropriately. We had 1 jet ski safety issue where we had to make contact and take care of that. Outside of all that, and again, unfortunately, this is our Two River citizens. Outside the event, we responded to an overdose incident. That life was thankfully saved. We responded to a 6-person fight with a reported firearm outside the event, but near the beach and all the festivities taking place. Luckily, that was a facsimile firearm, but we did have people go to jail in that incident. We also responded to a suspicious individual with long guns outside the event area. That's another one of your active participants in showing his rights off around town, even during the 4th of July. So nothing happened there. He was free to continue carrying his firearm around town to his dismay. We responded to numerous fireworks complaints. I can't even give you an exact number at this point yet. We had a hit and run accident. We also had another OWI first, again, a local resident, and an OWI 7th, another local resident. But positive things, we gave out 50 to 70 toys to the children and several dozen cards along the way. And we had a lot of positive contacts about all the different ways that we were interacting and keeping the community safe. Any questions?
I know there was a social media discussion about a fairly serious bike pedestrian accident.
Yeah, that was actually before the 4th. That was on the 3rd. Yeah. And my understanding is, again, all Two Rivers individuals, basically a bicycle, a regular bicycle. It wasn't an e-bike, but it was a bicycle out on the Mariners Trail that struck a pedestrian. So sounds like some inattentive, either bike riding and or walking in that incident. So
And as far as you noted, a regular bicycle, not a hybrid with assisted power, but that is an issue that has been reviewed not that long ago as it relates to trail use. You can speak to that.
Yeah, just simply going back in time, when we looked at the laws related to e-bikes, e-bikes can go anywhere where a bicycle can go. Bicycles are allowed on the Mariner Trail, so therefore e-bikes are also allowed on the trail. There is a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit for anything out on the Mariners Trail. And we try to get out there as much as possible. We've had a lot of good interactions out there, contrary to what you might see on Facebook. But we did resurrect our bike patrol. It's all e-bike bike patrol now. We had our e-bikes out this weekend, and they've been on the trail repeatedly. Our bikes can go much faster than 25 miles per hour, which is a good thing because we need to chase down individuals. And the best part is the officers don't get tired when they're chasing them down with that 35+ mile-an-hour speeds. But yeah.
A lot of people were out enjoying Two Rivers, and that includes over 11,000 residents and a whole lot of visitors. So
I will say the only thing that is not allowed on the Mariners Trail is the gas-powered motor of any sort. So every once in a while we'll get those complaints where you have mopeds or mini bikes or some makeshift weed whacker type bicycle. We get that quite a bit. So we address those and we remove them and show them where they can or cannot operate. And a lot of times those makeshift ones are not allowable anywhere.
Thanks for the update on that too. Council chambers audio visual system, two things. You'll be glad to know that the vendor will be here starting Wednesday. The project is scheduled to be completed by next week, Wednesday. The rack of equipment that's being replaced does also include the part where the system that failed us tonight interacts with the bigger system. So we're hopeful that will be taken care of as well. Knock wood, the next regular council meeting, we should be back to our regular system functioning properly. So, would just remind folks, the public information meeting on the project, major planning project on planning resilient shoreline is going to be on Wednesday, July 23rd here in council chambers. We are posting that as a joint meeting of the Plan Commission, the Advisory Rec Board, the Environmental Advisory Board, and City Council. Even if the council members that just serve on those of the three committees show up, that would be 4 out of 9. And it is a big planning effort, something that hopefully lays the foundation for some good use of that shoreline over the coming decades. So we do encourage folks to come out, and we do plan to live stream that meeting as well. Bridge maintenance, as shown on the slide. Last week on July 2, Public Works crews had the 17th Street Bridge shut down for a couple hours in the morning for what I would term, and maybe I guess we're in the summer, but spring cleaning, washing off the structural elements of the bridge to get accumulated salt and dirt and grime off it. This week, I believe it's on the 10th, Thursday, there will be a snooper unit in from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, basically an articulating boom that can suspend folks safely over the side of the bridge to do some blasting and grinding of areas where there's corrosion, get those painted and primed for the long time life of that bridge. It's a mighty expensive asset. We want to be taking good care of it. If any time permits, after they're done with their work on 17th, we want to get them up to just do an exterior wash of the parapet walls on the river, the outsides of the parapet walls on the 22nd Street Bridge, which have got some of the black Two Rivers product that our high humidity environment creates. So be watching for that. Just wanted to highlight, Monroe Street closure. If you looked down or up Monroe Street today, you saw a whole lot of activity going on there with lead water service lateral replacement. That's planned from now until about the middle of August, but Matt, I'm assuming with a little luck, we may see it done sooner than that. Right. But appreciate the public's cooperation. Please use that section from 16th to 22nd if you really need to for local traffic. Lots of activity. The business facade improvement projects, just again, the slide that's in front of you, just a reminder that program continues to finance some great projects. Tim Klein over at The Hook has made fantastic progress during June, is nearing completion on that project, which is assisted with a grant of up to $30,000, which is available on a reimbursement basis from the city at $25,000 and Two Rivers Main Street at $5,000. I've never seen a Facebook post take off like the City Hall Facebook post on the Hook project last week, and last I saw it was over 1,100 likes or love. Likewise, later this summer, you'll see completion of the Violet Inn project. There is still money available for grants. I've had a couple of recent inquiries, and hopefully we'll be bringing some more to council. Tannery condominiums, there's one duplex unit well under construction up there. That's the long-awaited phase 2 of the Rivers Edge Condos project. So that's taking shape very nicely if you can buy there. Lots. Sandy Bay Highlands subdivision phase 3. Again, we had one lot that sold in phase 3 late last year. We have 4 under contract with Lakeshore Residential, and we're close on the sale of the first 2 of those lots this week. That's waiting to hear if that's going to happen on Wednesday or Thursday. We have another signed purchase agreement on a lot purchase that's supposed to close with a private party for construction of their own custom home yet this month. And I know I had an inquiry on some of the covenants and wetland restrictions from the realtors at Wanker looking over there. The council will see bids in August for the next phase of infrastructure, that being the first lift of asphalt. If you haven't been out there, there's some really beautiful lots in phase 3. Water main flushing continues in the central part of the city, and the crews are doing a great job putting the signs up. Scratching our heads here at City Hall just before 4th of July because there was no water, especially on the upper floors. Called the water department, and yes, they were flushing the area. So you may have some cloudy water right after flushing takes place. If you do feel the need to rinse out, to flush out your system at home, a reminder, use the cold water. You don't want to be circulating the water with sediment in it through your hot water heater. The local plumbers are busy enough as it is. So replacing your water heater. You've got some stats there on lead service lateral replacement. That's coming along well. Matt, when do we expect the folks from that have the new contract that was awarded earlier this year to start up there?
We're hoping August, September.
Okay, August, September for the next contract. What you're seeing out there right now is the work being done by Mammoth Construction, with contract awarded in 2024. Lots and lots of upcoming events. I'll rattle it off real quick. This Thursday, the Dave Steffen Band in Central Park for Thursday night concerts. Thursday the 17th, the TR Community Band, and out in the park on the Schmidt Brothers stage on July 20, Sunday, July 20. All is a treat, highlighted this summer. The Lakeshore Wind Ensemble takes the stage for their annual outdoor concert. Next Saturday, the 12th, is the Brian Lee Memorial Blues Festival. We've got a resolution tonight honoring Brian Lee, Two Rivers' native son. That made it big in the jazz world, spending most of his career in New Orleans, as well as some national touring that organized by Two Rivers Main Street this Saturday in the park. It's one of those amazing Two Rivers events. Bands on the Beach kicked off yesterday with the Cougars. They outlasted the rain. It was a crowd of 300 or 400 people. I'm told on the beach. I didn't get down there. But this coming Sunday, the 13th, 2 to 5:30 at Rotary Pavilion is the Electric Cars. There's Coffee with Cop next week, Tuesday, 15th, at Rissa's Cafe and Gifts. And Leicester Public Library has a whole slug of July activities that are identified in the program in front of you, which if I take a quick look, I would tell you, but it's, trust me, there's a lot of activity in the library, including the summer reading program, which is right in full swing at the library. And let's see, Downtown Friday Night Live, the Drawers, on next week, Friday the 18th. So we've got a schedule on Friday night concert you can find on Explore Two Rivers. Over at Hamilton Wood Type, really big prints, always a popular workshop that is, I believe, available to the public. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, July 16, 17, and 18. That includes getting out a steamroller, oftentimes from our city street department. We assist there for rolling out some of them really big prints over at Hamilton Wood Type. Kiwanis Fish Derby and Festival, one of the big events of summer, returns on the 19th and 20th at Walsh Field. The fishing has been good out on the lake. Just ask our Parks and Rec director. He was up this past weekend fishing. And also the kayak series continues under the auspices of the Parks and Rec department with a paddle and session on Great Lakes education with Titus from the Sea Grant program. And then on the Schmidt Brothers stage, Harmony Lives on the Schmidt Brothers stage on Saturday, July 19, and that features an hour and a half of free barbershop music from numerous groups as identified. That's sponsored in part with grant assistance from Explore Two Rivers. Chalk It Up Kids Night at Washington Park, Tuesday, July 22nd. Snowfest, I believe it's the 50th anniversary this year. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, July 25th, 26th, 27th. Council President mentioned the reminder for riding in the parade, lots of activities there. And by all means, go to exploretworivers.com for complete and up-to-date listing of events. I'm not going to skip over the intergovernmental update this time because there's pretty big news. Well, there's big news out of DC. We heard a lot about that right after the 4th. There was also big news 2 days into the new state fiscal year with the Republican leadership, joint finance, and the governor's office reaching agreement on a compromise budget for Wisconsin. The budget implications for Wisconsin cities are outlined in this update from the League of Municipalities that's in front of each of you. Again, one of the benefits of the city's league membership is the staff of the League of Municipalities are on the ground in Madison, checking out the sausage making that happens in the middle of the night a lot of times as the budget gets ground out. The good news is we will see the second biennial budget with an increase in the state's funding commitment to shared revenues. That's our biggest single revenue source for the general fund, about $4.7 million out of our $12 million general fund budget comes from state shared revenues. For about 30 years, we had seen shared revenues to municipalities that pot had either been frozen or reduced. Last session, the legislature approved a significant increase and made a commitment that local aids, and I believe that includes both shared revenues and expenditure restraint, would be set equal to what 1% of the 5% state sales tax brings, so 20% of sales tax revenue. So we saw an increase last year. Well, in the current year, we saw 2.3% lift. The budget as adopted locks in a 3.4% increase in shared revenues for next year. So for Two Rivers, that's just a little over $160,000. It's noted there that that increase would have been 4.1%, but the state took a hit on overall sales tax revenues by excluding the sales tax or eliminating entirely the sales tax on electric and gas bills. So that's good news for every one of us on the tax front. But that reduced that increase somewhat. 3.4% is great compared to what we've seen in past years, which is generally nothing. And the current projection, it'll all depend on actual numbers and where the economy goes, but there's an estimated 2.9% lift that would come in the following year, close to $160,000. So the state has seen these kind of increases every year and what flows into their budget. It's nice to see growth in the local share. Municipal service payments, those are a really big deal if you're a state university town or a town with a lot of state facilities. That only amounts to about $6,400 on our current budget, but the boost in payments, there's about $1,800 for Two Rivers. Water and wastewater utility financing, this relates to the state-funded interest rate subsidy that helps write down interest costs on those safe drinking water loans and clean water fund loans. This is going to keep that happening. Just to remind you that right now, those subsidies bring down interest on those 20-year borrowings to 55% of the market. So we're anticipating the borrowing that will happen next year for water and wastewater projects to be at about 2.45% through those environmental loan programs. And that's in large measure because of state budget activity. I'm going to skip over the Protect the Pen thing, which relates to school funding. Frankly, I've read it 3 times and don't understand that. Skipping over to the next page, general transportation aids, a modest increase of 3% in each year of the biennial budget. We get about $600,000 in transportation aids for local streets and connecting highways, so that'll be about an $18,000 per year lift. Our transportation aids for local streets are also based on a formula that takes into account what the city's been spending on street reconstruction, what we spend on street maintenance, a bunch of other factors. So those probably count more than what the overall increase in the pot of money is. And in recent years, we've seen some increase due to our increased activity in street maintenance and street reconstruction. Transit funding on the surface appears positive to the extent that benefits Manitowoc Transit. That could have a positive impact on our fairly hefty subsidy of over $120,000 a year for transit. Harbor Assistance Program, we have not tapped that in recent years, but not that long ago, it was used for harbor dredging about 8 or 9 years ago, and it did also assist with the Coast Guard Park seawall project. And you see there, it's $15 million, and that's a similar amount to past budgets, but any earmarks, so as soon as the budget was adopted, there were projects earmarked in past years. Those earmarks have been funded with other GPR revenues, so there will actually be $15 million a year that cities can compete for in that pot of money. We may have, Two Rivers may have to look at that because we haven't been getting any assurance from the feds about getting those shoals that are already a problem out in the channel knocked down. And I don't know that there was much help in what passed Congress last week. That's about all I have. I guess we'd want to look with interest under the heading of economic development on page 3. There's some talent recruitment grants for communities that want to develop strategies to bring folks in from out of state and build Wisconsin's workforce, especially with weather events. I know some of you as council have brought up, there's a lot of reasons for people to find Wisconsin, which is seismically stable, doesn't get hurricanes, doesn't get a lot of flash flooding, the nature we saw this past weekend. Might be some good reasons to come here to kind of offset cold winters. And then there's another pot for you on page 6 for a local project grant program, $50 million for projects that excuse me, serve the statewide public interest but are located in a municipality. Maybe something there. I've not seen any program descriptions, but maybe that could help with helping build out some of the NOAA infrastructure for the marine sanctuary where we've seen cuts at the federal level. Some funding for EMT training and licensure. We'll be looking to the fire department for some more information on that. I understand reauthorization of the stewardship program is something that's still to be dealt with. It's not part of the budget. That's been historically pretty important for Parks and Rec project. So that is the news out of Madison as it relates to the state budget. And I didn't hear of any, sometimes there are major policy things that are shoved into the budget in the middle of the night that are not related to funding. Haven't heard about a lot that relates to this now. So with that, council, that is my report.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Number 10, consent agenda. Under A, we have minutes of meetings. Committee on Aging from June 2nd, 2025, Environmental Advisory Board from June 17th, and the Business and Industrial Development Committee and Community Development Authority from June 24th. Recommended action will be a motion to receive and file. Under B, we have financial reports from March 2025. We have debt services, general fund, Leicester Library, and utilities reports. Recommended action will be a motion to receive and file. Under C, we have applications and petitions. There are 5 of them. We have a request for road closure on Jackson Street from 21st Street to 22nd Street from 8 a.m. on Friday, August 8th, 2025 to 10:30 p.m. on Saturday, August 9th, 2025 for an annual event for Rogers Street Days. Number 2, temporary Class B beer license for Rogers Street Fishing Village for Rogers Street Days on August 8th and August 9th at 2102 Jackson Street. Number 3, we have a temporary Class B beer license for Woodland Dunes Nature Center and Preserve Inc. for Heineken Brew on September 5th, 2025 at 3000 Hawthorne Avenue. We also have a temporary Class B beer license for Woodland Dunes Nature Center and Preserve Inc. for Chamber After Hours on August 21st, 2025 at 3000 Hawthorne Avenue. And finally, we have a renewal from a 2025-2026 for Two Rivers Hotel Group LLC located at 1407 16th Street for combination Class B beer, Class B liquor license expiring June 30th, 2026. The recommended action will be a motion to approve the request and applications and authorize road closure and insurance of the licenses.
I'll make that.
Thank you, Bonnie. Second by Adam. Any council discussion? See none, we'll do a voice vote. So all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Carried, thank you. On to 11, city council formal items. Under A, we have proclamation naming July 12th, 2025 as Brian Lee Day. Recommended action, motion to read and adopt the proclamation. Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to read it now.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Bill. Any council discussion? See none, we'll do a roll call vote. Amanda.
Doug Brandt.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimelowitz.
Aye.
Jeff Stecklinser.
Aye.
Adam Mahusky.
Aye.
Darrell Leclerc.
Aye.
Shannon Derby. Aye. Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Okay.
All yours, Greg.
Okay.
So, Andy.
Yes. Proclamation naming July 12th, 2025 as Brian Lee Day in the city of Two Rivers. Whereas Brian Lee, also known as the Braille Blues Daddy, blind giant of the blues, and New Orleans Blues Institution, was born March 16, 1943 in the city of Two Rivers, Wisconsin, and passed away at the age of 77 on August 21, 2020 in Sarasota, Florida. And whereas Brian Lee made the world a better place by dedicating his life to and sharing his God-given musical talent and love of early rock and blues, living by the creed that, quote, a gift is not a gift unless you share it. And whereas Brian Lee began performing professionally at the age of 13 in his hometown of Two Rivers and continued playing all over the world, touring in the Midwest, Eastern Seaboard, Rocky Mountain states, Canada, Europe, and Brazil until the year 2020. And whereas Brian Lee recorded 18 albums over 4 decades, bookended by 1979's Beauty Isn't All This Visual and 2018's Sanctuary, appeared on numerous labels that included Just in Time, Severin Records, and Irrelevant Records. And whereas Brian Lee's achievements included a 2011 Grammy nomination with Kenny Wayne Shepherd, 2008 German Critics Award for Outstanding Blues for Katrina What's Her Name, 2011 BMA Blues Rock Album of the Year, 2015 Big City Rhythm and Blues Lifetime Achievement Award, 2016 Legendary Blues Artists Blues Hall of Fame, 2016 Legendary Blues Artists Florida Blues Hall of Fame, 2017 WAMI, Wisconsin Area Music Industry Lifetime Achievement Award, 2018 Phoenix Radio Lifetime Achievement Award, and numerous Blues Society awards. And whereas Brian Lee was a remarkable soul who greeted each day with gratitude, optimism, and humble joy for all his blessings and gave immeasurable musical enjoyment to his legion of worldwide fans, now therefore be it resolved, the City Council of the City of Two Rivers declares July 12, 2025, the date of the 5th annual Brian Lee Blues Festival as Brian Lee Day in the city of Two Rivers, and urges all citizens and visitors to join in the full slate of activities planned for that day to celebrate the gifts of this talented son of Two Rivers as his music continues to enrich the soundtrack of our lives. Dated the 7th day of July, 2025. This will be delivered to family members and presented to those gathered on Saturday at the park. Yeah, get on down there by all means. It's just a great day. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. On to B, resolution amending the 2025 city budget to provide funds for proposed property purchase.
Items B and C go together. The City Council has discussed in closed session at the last 2 meetings, maybe 3, at least the last 2, the possibility of purchasing a parking lot parcel owned by Wine Nut LLC at southwest corner of Adams and 18th Street. It's a largely paved lot with about 22 parking spaces on it, directly across the street from the community house. As noted, the city currently has the right under a cooperative agreement with Why Not for the use of up to 10 spaces in that lot for city vehicles. That was part of a cooperative arrangement that also has 10 spaces, I believe it is, in the city lot, the easternmost spaces in the city lot by the community house, designated for public use versus restricted for community house users, and which allows the placement of a dumpster by the restaurant, so by Pool City Brewing, which occupies Why Not's property. That agreement has 2 years to go in its term. It can be canceled on 1 year's notice by either party. Not what we're voting on tonight, you're voting on tonight, but background information. The proposed purchase price on this is $30,000. Authorization for the purchase agreement is item C, which falls next on the agenda, but no point in voting on that unless there's a willingness to provide the funding to make the purchase happen. What you've got in front of you is, therefore, is a resolution amending the 2025 budgets for Parks and Rec capital and for tax incremental district number 12 to provide funding for the property purchase. What this proposes, I expect you've read through it, is to take $15,000 or half of the net purchase price from existing budgeted funds in the Parks and Rec capital budget, fund, or 454, I believe that is. Yeah. And those funds specifically are $8,800 in carryover funds that were not spent on last year's budgeted Neshoda Park improvements, and $6,200 from $20,000 total budgeted for 2025 playground improvements. So that would be 15. And then this amendment does propose that $15,000 be transferred in from borrowed funds that are now in TIT number 12, Fund 241. That essentially would be $15,000 worth of debt that would become would ultimately be repaid then through taxes over the 10-year borrowing. It was borrowed last year primarily for the improvements on the Washington Street Bridge. As you know, those ended up being scaled back because of some design constraints, what DOT would not allow. That would cover the proposed purchase price on the property. And I would note, if the council, I know some council members have expressed that the entirety of this amount ought to come out of the parks capital budget. That's not impossible, but it would impact in a bigger way what would be available for playground improvements. And in addition to that, we're probably taking some of the funding that's in there for Vietnam Vets Park improvements. I think that's $25,000, and there's I believe $20,000 borrowed for playground improvements, and most of that right now is unspent. But in what's in front of you, we're proposing taking $6,200 from there. If there are questions on the impacts of doing of what this does, or doing something different, our Parks and Rec director might certainly address that.
Any questions for Greg or Mike? Yes, Adam.
The 88 carryover from 2024, did we not use that then to balance the budget? I mean, usually when we have carryover from something on the 7.5, where was that earmarked for?
I think, I'm not sure, at budget time, we knew we had that entire amount available.
Okay.
It effectively is carryover, and I know Mike has looked at where we are on the 2025 project at Neshoda. And from my understanding, we're still looking good to be within budget on that project.
The bills hadn't come in last year at budget then?
I can't say for sure. I can just say it was identified we had $8,800 left out of the project.
Greg or? If not, we are looking for a motion to waive reading and adopt the resolution.
I should mention too, I'm looking to get a second quote. The quote I got on phase one environmental assessment of the property, I had stated with confidence in our discussions, I thought that would be 1,500 or below. That did come in at 2,000. So full disclosure, unless I can find a cheaper deal fairly quickly, that would be another 500 that would come out of Parks and Rec capital. I don't want that to be disclosed later and be a concern.
250, right, because they have.
No, what is paid by the city will be reduced by the cost of the phase one up to $1,500. No, that was discussed, but what went to them was they would pay the total cost, but not to exceed $1,500. So if we end up having to pay $2,000, they'd pay $1,500. The purchase price would be reduced by $1,500. The city would pay the balance.
I guess I will say that it was me that contacted Greg, and I do believe this should all come out of Parks and Rec capital. I don't know, I don't think we should be tapping a TIF district for this. I don't see the greater impact to the rest of the community or to that district by capturing this lot.
Yeah, and actually, I don't disagree.
Or bridge, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, the TIF actually right now is sitting with borrowed money in it that it doesn't need. So the TIF would repay that portion of the debt if it repaid by the debt service, which is all of us as taxpayers. So, yeah, not disagreeing with your premise at all. It is possible. It would just, from my discussions with Mike, it would really crimp things as far as what the rec department had planned to do this year in the way of capital. A life's full of choices.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we're looking for a motion to waive reading and adopt the resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Doug. Do we have a second? Thank you, Tim. Any council discussion? Yes,
I will vote no, because I think it should only be out of Parks and Rec capital.
thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we'll do a roll call vote. Amanda?
Sam Fisher? Ryan Chmielis?
Aye.
Scott Seckelberg?
Aye.
Adam Conti?
No.
Darla Leclerc? Aye. Shannon Derby? Aye. Bill Leclerc?
Aye.
Doug Grant?
Aye.
Okay, on to C, agreement with Wyandotte LLC for city purchase of parking lot parcel located in the southwest corner of Adams and 18th Street.
I think you generally favor because the amendment just got approved, but I would point out, it's a little unusual because this is a lot that for many years was owned by Wells Fargo Bank, which both when it was opened and for the 5 years or so after the bank closed, it still owned the bank. They also owned this parking lot and a parking lot next to the post office at the other corner, the northeast corner of Adams and 18th. And frankly, the community, not so much, we didn't park city trucks there, I don't think city employees park there, but as a community, speak for myself and a lot of other cars I saw parked there during big events like Cartorama, we were able to take advantage of that space that somebody else was paying the taxes on and plowing. With the purchase of Wells Fargo Bank, the Wyandotte LLC group acquired this parking lot, and again, the one just west of the post office. They did approach the city earlier this year indicating they wanted to divest themselves of this lot, wondered if the city was interested, which is what led to my bringing this to council. So I guess my point is, if this were to be sold or perhaps made unavailable by the current owners for parking, I just got this my coffee. That would have an impact on public parking in the area. It is more than the assessed value of the property, which would indicate a market value of about $22,000. I find the assessments a little curious on these lots because the lot next to the post office, which is less than half the size, is assessed slightly higher than this one. But one thing that I think is clear, if the city was to go out to find another 20 to 24 parking spaces, just about any direction you go, you'd be acquiring a developed property and need to clear it. So police chief pointed out to me as I was putting my memo together, the city does lease some parking spaces in lots the city owns, like over at Walsh Field to the Aurora Clinic. We have them available for folks downtown, and a lot of the city owns off Washington Street. We don't rent any there currently, but our rate is $200 a year per space. So if we were renting 22 spaces, that'd be $4,400 a year. So with that, consistent with the direction council has provided in closed session, I present this proposed purchase agreement. It does call for purchase price at $30,000 with the cost of the city doing a phase 1 environmental site assessment to be deducted from the purchase price. Maximum of $1,500 can be deducted there. It does make pretty standard, makes title insurance, acquiring title insurance, and the filing fees for the transaction, the financial responsibility of the seller, not the city. It does call for closing on the purchase by the end of July or within, oh my goodness, I think it's 5 days or a week following, 7 days following the city's receipt of the commitment for title insurance and draft closing documents that would be provided by the seller. So the intent is to get this closed as quickly as we can. So and I would point out, after the document went out on Friday, we shared it with the folks at Line Knot, got feedback from their attorney today. What you have in front of you is, of course, what it went out on Friday. 2 changes, which I talked with Sean, our city attorney, who's on the line right now, about. First one was my error, the parcel number in the second paragraph on page 1, where it's the seller's the owner of real property. That was misstated. I erroneously given our attorneys the wrong parcel number. Otherwise, we'd be buying the land next to the post office. Don't want to do that. And there was some conflicting language in the document as to who was responsible for the cost of title insurance. I did not run copies of the revised document, but I can, if council's okay with it, I can tell you the city attorney made modifications on pages 3 and 4 to make it clear that the cost of title insurance is the responsibility of a seller. And Sean, if you could vouch for me on that, that'd be helpful.
Only for the documents are corrected and they now reflect how we intend to be writing, whereby the seller is responsible for the title commitment. We fixed the issue with the parcel and it should be good to go.
What about if the phase 1 study?
And it does read that it's contingent on the phase 1 study being acceptable to the city in its sole discretion. If not, yeah. Sean, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it's a relatively standard contingency, but it is different here that there's no objective standard. The city, in its own discretion, can, for any reason, that might come back on that study that decides that's not a risk, liability, or what have you, that it doesn't want to purchase because of that.
That would be my intention to share the results of that study with council either on the 21st or the 28th.
So we'll need a motion to authorize the city manager. Oh, go ahead.
How could we have an agreement with them as far as the stuff within the rec lot if they aren't giving us anything? In other words, we're giving them everything, they're not giving us anything. So how's that agreement not null and void? Because you said it still would be a year that you'd have to give notice, but give notice to what?
If the city
Because there's pretty much a one-sided agreement.
That's true. The agreement right now gives us the right to 10 spaces in the slot, and that if we buy it, we own it all.
That agreement can't, it's hard for that agreement to exist.
That's an interesting question. As far as and what is the city getting? Because what we were getting is now property we've purchased. I guess I would just suggest, in the interest of cooperation, which was the point of the agreement, The city still has the right to cancel. Sean, I didn't throw this question at you as attorney, but does that raise any issues that there's no longer any consideration for that cooperative agreement? May not be a fair question right on the spot, but that cooperative agreement, which we are now about 3 years into.
Well, I guess in this case, and maybe I'm not familiar enough with the background here, but, you know, the city is providing a sum of money in exchange for property here. That's the consideration. If we don't have consideration here, then the terms, you know, both parties are, you know, alleviated from any responsibilities to perform under the agreement here. That's not to say that just because the city won't necessarily be acquiring property if it declines to, there's still be, you know, I guess in this case that option there provides the consideration which gives the agreement its I guess teeth here. The fact that consideration isn't granted, or the object of consideration isn't actually transacted later on, doesn't necessarily defeat the consideration, because the consideration of the original option would promise would provide that consideration.
I apologize for a bit more background and context. What Adam was speaking to, I'm pretty certain, the city has an existing agreement that dates back to, I think, August of 2022 with Line Knot. It's termed a cooperative agreement. It basically provided that the city could use 10 of the spaces in this lot that we're talking about purchasing right now. The city in turn designated 10 spaces, I think I've got the numbers right, it's 10 in each location, 10 spaces in its already city-owned lot across the street that would be designated for public parking, not Line Knot LLC customer parking, but public parking, and did allow for placement of a dumpster in tandem with the business Cool City Brewing and Line Knot's property to put a dumpster there. So Adam's point being, and I'm sorry, I jumped in, but the city no longer has any specific rights relative to the lot we're buying because we're buying it. Yet we do still have an agreement in place that commits to the other party, Line Knot, that 10 spaces in the city-owned lot across the street will be made available to the public for public 2-hour parking, I believe it is, and that the business in Line Knot's building can have a dumpster in that already city-owned lot. So the question is, we have that existing cooperative agreement, which I'm sorry I didn't ask you to review, which appears a little one-sided.
Sure, I get that. And I guess my thought here is that if Line Knot is responsible for providing time loss to the city and it can no longer convey that, well, then Line Knot can't perform the agreement, and that would excuse the city's performance.
That was my question. Just because I think that we can make better use of that by moving our dumpster and moving their dumpster out of there, as I showed Greg in pictures, there are maintenance vehicles that park over there regularly, including again today. I don't blame the maintenance people of the rec department because their maintenance office and building is right there. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to be moving stuff across the street. So they park right there where those dumpsters are, where the front entrance doors are. Again, it makes sense. That's where their maintenance shop is, just like DPW parks at their maintenance shop. They don't park down the road. Or the school system. When they go to Scannick or McKee, they park right by the building. They don't park in a parking lot. So it makes sense for them to be able to park there.
So we've been talking about, this is not on the agenda, but Jake Cole.
No, I'm just asking what happens to the agreement, because we're essentially going to enter into an agreement to purchase land, of which we're supposed to be getting.
Yeah.
As part of another agreement, that other agreement can't exist because they can't perform it.
Well, the agreement still, it can exist, the city essentially continues to consent to it and operate as if that's the agreement, but, so if the city wants to, they can certainly still allow why not to operate as if the agreement was still in place. But at the same time, the city will also have the option to say that why not isn't performing the agreement's void. So it's kind of at the city's option at this point.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, the city can, in fact, choose at this point. Of course, maybe the agreement provides, I guess perhaps, I would, like Greg said, I haven't reviewed the agreement, so I guess I can't speak to what the agreement might include, but my best guess would be that it would be the city's option.
Well, we can certainly bring that back, and if the council has discretion there, you could address either the space occupied by the dumpster, which is clearly giving a specific right to a specific business, or could relate, address those 10 spaces being designated as public parking all day, because that's either could or couldn't, because that's not specific to a particular business. Other members of the public could be parked there. People using the community house can park there. I'm sorry, I didn't anticipate this being a significant issue, but it's a fair question.
Yeah, I think you should have that, for the next. Yeah, 'cause it's, we should look at it. Okay,
Bring that back to the council.
any other questions for Greg? Yes, Bonnie?
Well, I think this is, I guess I was hoping we could have talked about this one more time before making it a final thing. I don't like putting that cap on the phase one thing. What is that called? You know, where they.
Yeah,
look at
environmental
it.
site assessment, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know what the cost is for environmental stuff, but I don't wanna pay more than $1,500.
Right
So
now, the
wish
one
it
quote I
would-
got, sorry,
What's that?
right now, the one quote I have is 2,000.
Oh, it's 2,000?
Right. So that would mean the city would, under agreement, would be $500.
I think we're rushing into this too fast. For that reason, I think I'll vote no on this part. This is what I'm thinking.
Any other questions for Greg? Otherwise, we are looking for a motion to authorize the city manager and city clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the city with the changes of the parcel number, correct? And the cleared up language on pages 3 and 4 that makes it clear that the council parties for the license insurance,
Title insurance.
Title insurance.
Yeah.
is covered by the seller. Those are changes we have. That's the motion we're looking for. Anyone can repeat that? That works too. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Doug. Any council discussion? Yes, sir.
I walked away from that meeting thinking that we agreed on 30, less the cost of phase one that we paid for. Is that correct?
But capping it at 1,500.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Which frankly, my blunder, and I apologize for that.
Well, too, I mean, you've already seen one that's for 2,000, maybe in the future. In the near future, we might want to go ahead and change it depending on, because things are much more expensive now.
Anyone else? Seeing no one else, this will be a roll call vote. Amanda?
Bonnie Shimeludis,
No.
Scott Steffenser,
Aye.
Adam Husky,
No.
Darrell Leclerc,
Aye.
Shannon Derby,
I
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Doug Brandt,
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Okay, thank you all for that.
We will bring the matter of that cooperative agreement back on the agenda for the 21st.
Eventually for
2 weeks from today. So I think all parties should know where we stand on that before I close. Okay.
On to D, authorization to reallocate funds in the 2025 water utility budget to fund consulting services associated with development of a DNR mandated water supply service area plan.
I understand this was discussed at the Utilities Committee tonight. Some of the materials in the packet do reference a budget amendment. After looking at it more closely, talking with Andrew about it, I think as opposed to a formal budget amendment, the better term would be a reallocation of funds specifically to authorize this consulting services survey. In the water budget that was presented to the utilities and finance committees and adopted, we identified only one capital project for this year that would happen out of utility cash, that being $30,000 for soffit repair replacement at the water plant. That's not going to happen this year. It hasn't been bid out. And coincidentally, it is the same dollar amount as the proposal for preparing this water supply service area plan, which Andrew can address with you. So this is something where we are up against a regulatory deadline, as I understand it, for the end of this year. Need to get it done, and was not fully anticipated at budget time.
So this is a completely new regulation, like Greg said. It's called the Water Supply Surface Area Plan. This got brought to our attention in November last year. Quite honestly, I didn't have time to look at it as we were in the midst of budget season already. I'm digging into it now with our consultant, sorry. There's a few things going into the background of this new regulation that we also need to look at. So one of the things that we do at the water utilities, a risk and resilience plan, this is done every 5 years. That risk and resilience plan does play a big role in this, and we are up to redo that risk and resilience plan in June of next year. We also are going back to our master plan for the water utility, which hasn't been updated since 2017. So we're really looking at trying to update all these documents as we need to anyway, and then I need the risk and resilience for next June, so that would be out of the way already, and then we can actually have very good information going into this, so we can get very good information out of it.
Any questions,
Is this, okay, when I read 2D, the thing that bothered me was the emergency water uses for connecting to Manitowoc Public Utilities. First of all, are we already connected to them?
Yes.
It's not a good connection. It is my understanding. I mean, because the one pipe is too small or something like that. Well, anyway, the thing is, we've never used their water, but they use ours. And are you gonna be doing something like talking to them and saying, you know, if we use ours, we pay this, if we use yours, we pay this? That's my concern.
So I understand what you're saying. We did, so up until last winter, we had not used any water from the interconnected forever. Last winter though, we did have our intake freeze. There was 3 days there where we did not take all of our water from Manitowoc, but we did take some because we couldn't keep up with the plant because of the fragile ice issue we were having. So this is what you get with emergency, right? We don't have an emergency for 20 years. We don't use it. We did last year. So it is still a great benefit for us to have that as an emergency, because we don't have any other thing, you know, if something happened at the plant or we had a fire. It's very tough to negotiate costs because they are billing us for what a 10-inch meter customer would, which is exactly what we would do for, say, you know, Riverside Foods or the hospital. I'm not saying those conversations may not happen in the future, but I have not had any of those myself today. This area plan does take all of these things into consideration. It's expansion of the city, where we're getting our water from, where our backup's coming from. We don't have any backup, say, private wells that we can rely on. If something does happen at the plant, we really are at the mercy of that interconnect.
Well, I don't disagree with the backup, that wasn't it, I just knew. I'm not gonna expand on it here. I didn't know that we used their water. But like you said, we never did until last winter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we knew about this in November, but we're just coming to it in July.
Well, it's due in December, so, with all the things going on that we have, I haven't even got to it till now. This does give us still 6 months to get it done before the regulations do. But yes, it would have been nice to have this done, or at least started a few months ago, but with all the other things going on with lead and copper and everything, this is the first I've actually got a chance to wheel into it.
Any other questions? Okay. Otherwise, now we're looking for a motion of some sort to authorize the reallocating of $30,000 from water plant software project to fund consulting services contract. Thank you, Shannon. Second by. Thank you, Bonnie. Any council discussion? Thank you for asking the question. That's why it takes long to get started.
Didn't take 9 months.
Anything else? All right. If not, we'll do a roll call vote, Amanda.
Scott Stephenson.
Aye.
Adam Husky.
Aye.
Lily Claire. Aye. Shannon Derby. Aye. Bill Claire.
Aye.
Doug Graham.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Brian Shalunas.
I,
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you for that. On to E, ordinance to amend section 6-4 of the city code to eliminate requirements for city licensure of massage establishments and massage technicians.
First of all, this ordinance is not about encouraging illicit massage parlors, whatever you might read, social media commentary. As noted in the ordinance, the city currently, in section 6.4 of the municipal code under licensing, provides for a requirement for licensure of massage technicians, as they're termed, and massage establishments. In terms of requiring licensing for the people who do therapeutic massage, there already is a state licensing requirement, professional training standards, and that's enforced by the state. There is not a state license requirement for massage establishments. However, we have had this on the books. I certainly don't remember this being added during my tenure. We do not have any record of any massage establishment license ever being issued, even though we have several businesses in town where massage services are offered. So, and this came to light when we were contacted earlier this year by a prospective new business that would have some element of massage among the health-related services being provided. So council members will recall we discussed this at work sessions, and the general thought has been, and that's in form of this ordinance, first of all, just like we don't license barbers or a lot of other professionals, tattoo professionals, why would we have a duplicate local requirement when there's a state license required? Secondly, while there's not state licensure for brick and mortar establishments where massage is offered, again, we've never actually required issuance of a license. We do have businesses where massage is among the services offered. This ordinance would retain the applicable standards that are to be met when you do operate a massage establishment, including prohibitions on, massage that would be of a sexual nature, of an illegal nature. That's addressed here, it's addressed elsewhere in the code as well. So the ordinance in front of you would eliminate both the city licensure requirements for massage technicians and the massage establishment. Chief Meinert's been involved in the review, obviously our city attorneys as well. Chief may have some comments and here to answer your questions.
I would just add, I think Adam was the one that brought it up, that one of the prior ones, it still allows for inspection of the premises by all those different entities, including law enforcement. So that's not an issue. And again, we would inspect anything on getting complaints like we normally would on criminal matters. So that being said, I looked over everything, and for the purposes of removing redundancy, I think it did just that while still allowing both the massage therapy that takes place now versus maybe when this ordinance was first developed, such as even somebody coming into a workplace and providing massage, or at a food and drink event. Now it allows for that to still happen without some sort of crazy thing we have to look around and look into. But it also still has regulations in it that we can address.
Pretty much the same thing we talked about at the work session at the library.
Correct.
That's where we were.
That's where we were without an elevator.
Yeah.
On that. And I mean, some people, from what I understand, offer massage services as an itinerant professional, you know, coming to a care facility or somewhere to offer a therapeutic massage. So it isn't always tied to a brick and mortar locus in the community.
Yeah, at that time, the understanding was though that we still had the ability to provide inspections when necessary and all those different entities. So that is included now, where it may have been unclear last time around.
Any questions? None, we're looking for motion to waive reading and adopt the ordinance. Thank you, Tim. Second by Shannon. Any council discussion? See none, we'll do a roll call vote. Amanda?
Ed Huskey.
Aye.
Darla Leclerc. Aye. Shannon Derby. Aye. Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Doug Brandt.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Ron Shamliman.
I,
Scott Steckenpferd.
Aye. Thank you all for that. On to 12 for information only.
Just a reminder of upcoming meetings, the Personnel and Finance Committee, when they met last week, Tuesday, that was the first, did agree to meet again this week, Thursday at 8 a.m. That will be here in the committee room. There's a regular council meeting, of course, on July 21, a work session on July 28, and then the first regular meeting in August is on the 4th. Per an email that came out from the city clerk today with a follow-up from Val, my assistant, we do need a short special meeting for purposes of considering a noise ordinance waiver to allow for live music. Technically, it would be very audible outside because it's inside a building, but with the doors open because of summer conditions. That request from Heroes Venture Arcade on Washington Street. And I was just reminded this evening, we do have one other business with a request for a waiver on the 20th of July, which I had said I would put on an agenda like tonight's, and isn't on there. And actually that's for berserkers, and I know Tim Petrie would be abstaining and not participating in that vote. But well, one on the clerk's office, one on me. We have two waiver requests that would require action before the meeting on the 21st. I know some of you had already responded to Val. The options offered were at 5 or 6 p.m. on Wednesday, or at 8 o'clock on Thursday morning for what should be a pretty short meeting that would be followed by Personnel and Finance. Understanding Personnel and Finance has got a hard stop at 9 if we're going to have all the members there. So you may have responded to Val, but how many are available for Wednesday? For starters, let's just say at 5 or 6. Wednesday. You were not on Wednesday, as I recall.
well, actually I can because I just got a cancellation.
We did, okay. 5, I'm sorry, make sure if it's 5 or 6 p.m. on Wednesday.
Either one.
1, 2.
That's what I have on my calendar.
I don't think she nailed it down. But, okay, okay, so that we could field a quorum there.
How many you have?
Hands again, Darrell. I didn't see yours up. Okay, but it's
Oh, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Mr. Bitter would be a maybe. Okay,
I'm
what?
just making sure because now you can't vote on it.
True, that's a good point.
But 6 you have.
Yeah, but you need 5 affirmative votes to approve. What about Thursday morning at 8 o'clock? How many? 5. Okay, right now that's not looking as good. So let me check on Mr. Bittner's availability. I'd feel a lot better if we had 7 potential voters. Okay, it was 5 or 6. How many of you cannot make it at one of those times? Okay, and that was a no for.
I could make 5, but I prefer 6.
Okay.
But if everyone else is 5, I'll make 5 work.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Wednesday I work at, second job, so.
Okay.
It varies.
So preference for 6. Okay, and I'm sorry.
If you can, if not, I can make 5 o'clock work.
Okay. Sounds like we have 6 folks here that agree that can make 5 or 6 on Wednesday. I'll check with Mark Bittner. Either way, I think we'll shoot for 6 as first preference on Wednesday. Okay. On the bright side, I'm not requesting a closed session tonight.
So, we click over closed session, convene open session, adjournment.
Yes, you have a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Adam. Second by. I saw Shan, where am I at? Any council discussion, seeing none? We'll do a roll call.
All in favor?
Voice vote, all in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye.
See you Wednesday.